Hi, my name is Claire Halpin and I'm an artist and facilitator, and you're very welcome back to the Highlanes Gallery. This week I went over land and sea, up mountains and down dale, across rivers and streams. I passed through fields and forests as I wandered my way through the Drogheda Municipal Art Collection. For this week's workshop we'll be looking at shape in the landscape, and we'll be making colour and collage artworks, and we will be taking our inspiration from two artworks in the collection and from the world around us. I want you to take a quiet moment to have a look at this artwork. What do you see? What is going on? So for me, the first thing I'm drawn to in this artwork is the movement in the painting. The movement in a thick swirling brush strokes. Looks like it was painted, in some parts it looks like it was painted quite quickly. And in some parts it looks like the artist has painted while all the colours were wet on top of one another. And that the artist has maybe mixed some of the colours together while they're on the canvas. Or maybe she was outside when she painted it. And then looking at the colours, at first it looks like it's just black and grey and white. And then the closer you look, you notice there's other colours peeping out underneath that grey and underneath that white. There's blues and greens and yellows and dark browns and orangey browns, and it's like the artist has actually built it up in layers. And then there's those two boats on the sea, and this shape of the boats is quite simple. The artist has just outlined a simple boat shape and a simple sail shape. And it looks like the sea is actually quite calm. It's nearly like just this white sheet of colour. And maybe it's reflecting the sky. And it's the shapes and the movement in the landscape that the artist has used these circular movements of brushstrokes. And it's like these are mounds of land or rocks or maybe cliffs with the sea behind. Maybe they're like rocks tumbling. You can see how the artist used flowing black to outline the edge of these abstract shapes. She nearly divides the painting up, splitting it into different shapes and parts. It's like a patchwork of brushstrokes in different colours. And the more we look, the more tones and shades we can see. There's soft shapes, not like hard angles or regular shapes like squares or rectangles or triangles. It's not surprising that we learn that this artist, Evie was also a stained glass artist. And we can see how her painting, how the way she painted, dividing it up using the black lines, would have influenced her work as a stained glass artist. Here is another artwork from the collection. It is by the artist Mary Swanzy. I want you to take a quiet moment to have a look at this artwork. What do you see? I find my eyes flicker across the surface of this painting. It's like it is a picture that has been broken up, cut up or jumbled up or splintered. And there's shapes and patterns all spiralling out, seemingly like spiralling out from the middle. I see there's leaves and I can see trees and plants bursting and weaving in front and behind each other. And the shapes are repeated and they're reflected and they're going backwards and forwards. And now I'm noticing there's a building or some architectural element over to the left hand side. It's like a column or maybe an arch. And there's a suggestion of a repeated arch in the middle of the painting. And it reminds me of Romanesque architecture, like church buildings maybe from the Middle Ages. I'm interested in how the artist has mixed the natural landscape of the leaves and the plants with the man-made elements of the building. And the way the colours and the use of the shapes, she nearly frames the plants and the trees using the art of the building. So the title of this artwork by Mary Swanzy is Oil Painting a la Mode de André Lahaute. A la mode means in the style of, and André Lahaute was a French Cubist artist who had a big influence on the work of Mary Swanzy, and also on the work of Evie, the first artist we looked at. André Lahaute was one of a group of Cubist artists who were trying to understand how to draw or paint the three-dimensional world around us, but on a flat surface. They tried to simplify it into flat geometric shapes, which they would draw over and over, repeating, turning them, or rotating them slightly to create these complex cubist paintings that were like multiple views of the same scene, or different angles of the same scene put on top of each other and turned around a little bit. You can see how Mary Swanzy was influenced by these ideas and techniques in this painting. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to explore shape in the landscape and colour in the landscape. And we're going to do this by creating some colourful collages. So I hope you have your materials gathered together and we will start. Okay, so pencils, scissors and glue, and we're going to be doing a lot of tearing this week, so I hope you have those nimble fingers warmed up. And I want you to dig deep this week for recycled newspapers, magazines, catalogues, so that we have a palette of colours, like the patchwork of colours that we looked at earlier in the with the two artworks that we looked at. And some cardboard packaging as well, to give us some different textures too. And I'm going to use for my background, I use the inside of a cereal box. Just means that starting with grey, you don't have this white sheet staring back at you. So for my collage, I'm going to use some ideas I took from my walks, my 5-kilometre walks along the canal. I want to combine some of the natural shapes with the man-made shapes and structures, but also to try and capture some of the movement of the water. So I'm going to use a couple of snapshots or different angles of your landscape to start. So with my cardboard sheet, I am going to start drawing out a plan. So keep the design fairly simple because you're going to be filling this in with paper. So I wanted to put in there's the movement of the water, and then I added in, they were kind of factory buildings that are kind of to one side, and then the locks and some trees overhanging the canal, and then all these bridges going back into the background. So starting with your palette of colours, I wanted to start with the water just to kind of get those natural shapes. So I'm tearing the paper and just using just different patchwork and filling in. With the grey in the background, you don't have to have everything lined up and you can allow some spaces in between. So if you put glue all over the whole area that you're kind of working on, so work on one area at a time. As I said, I started with the water and then just start filling them in, layering them up, and just like, as I said, like a patchwork. So it's kind of getting that flickering of light or flickering of movement as well. And as I said, you don't have to have them all lined up, or you don't have to fill in all the gaps. So I kind of expanded out. So I wanted to kind of bring the water's edge out to this kind of what seems to be kind of like a harsh angle. That'll be where it meets the man-made wall of the canal. It's got a little bit dark, I think, but I might add more colours to it later on when I have kind of completed the other areas. I was initially going to do kind of these long kind of dangly kind of shapes for the tree because it's like a willow tree, but I really liked Mary Swanzy's idea of using these kind of more geometric leaves, and it allowed me, so I cut out leaves in different sizes and allowed me to do that thing, kind of rotating them or turning them slightly. So it kind of creates this movement of the leaves across the canal. And then I moved on to the sky area then, and then I was back to tearing, and letting these kind of softer kind of shapes, and like that, just kind of taking lots of different kind of blue colours. And as I said, don't worry too much about kind of filling in exactly as the lines, because your design will kind of develop as you go along, and you kind of discover, well, actually that kind of maybe works better overlap in there. And anyway, I was going to be putting these blocks, these kind of harsh blocks over, so I was kind of less worried about kind of keeping inside the lines here. So for the buildings, I used text, so just like newspaper text. And once again, I use this idea of kind of cutting them out one way and then turning them. So you can see there that the text kind of goes in different directions. And I kind of liked that idea because it was like an industrial building, so it was like a factory. I liked the way it was kind of these geometric shapes. And then moving on to the gable locks. I know they look like they're very kind of dramatic black lines, but it was like that idea that Evie Hone, like kind of taking my idea from Evie Hone of using these kind of black lines to divide up the composition. I kind of softened them a little bit by putting this kind of grey at the edges. And then I found this kind of plate edge. It was in like a cookery or a recipe magazine, and that was like kind of a ready-made bridge for me. So I kind of wanted to put that kind of down at the bottom, so it kind of frames the whole kind of piece. And then I added in more bridges, as you can see there in the background, different colours, different patterns as well. And then started filling in kind of underneath the bridges with these kind of arch shapes. So you're kind of repeating the positive and the negative shape, so the shape that's underneath the bridges as well. I'm repeating it kind of throughout the collage. As I said, I thought the water had got a little bit dark, so I started adding in these whites, and I could only really kind of do that at the end when I stood back and looked at it and could see that it was gone too dark and the movement was kind of gone. So that's pretty much it. So that was my collage a la mode de Mary Swanzy, a Evie Home. Okay, so I know I got a little bit carried away with that one, and the baby became quite complicated for some of our younger participants. So here's a much simpler way of doing it. So you can just start back to your basic materials, your cardboard, your newspapers, magazines, and you're just going to tear some random shapes. Tear some random shapes, flip over the paper, see what colours are on the back, and just start sticking them down. See what it starts looking like. So here I kind of just playing around, sticking them down, moving them down, and started looking like a sea, and then this white big splash. So I started adding some more little kind of smaller sea spray. And of course, once you've got the sea spray, you're going to need a ship shape. So I need this boat shape, so I used scissors to cut this out. And then added a sail, and then setting sun. So just a much simpler way for the younger participants. Just to, as I said, just a combination of tearing, cutting and gluing. So have fun, enjoy, and we really look forward to seeing your creative, colourful collages. You can email them to us at info@highlanes.ie, and we will be creating an online gallery of artworks created during these workshops.